South Africa finds itself in a very unfortunate situation where we've been ranked as the highest country when it comes to gender-based violence. So women of South Africa stood up against this and said enough is enough. So this really saw Cabinet adopting a national strategic plan, which was then launched by the president, and this national strategic plan seeks to address gender-based violence, and it covers 6 pillars which talk to addressing gender-based violence to its finality. So we represent pillar number 5, which talks about economic empowerment, and really you can understand, it is known that women have disproportionately benefited from any economic benefits, whether you are talking about the social side or whether you are talking about general economic benefits in the country, and their participation in the economy has not been at the level at which it should be. So that pillar 5 seeks to address that particular issue around women and the status at which they find themselves in the economy. Pillar 5 of the National Strategic Plan seeks to address the economic empowerment of women in its totality. So what we are representing here and what Iwikona is one element. So the question becomes, what is a women's economic assembly? So the aim of this assembly is to gather South Africans, because women economic empowerment is a South African issue. It's not a women issue. It is an issue that should be addressed by everyone. And as you know, that the National Strategic Plan in itself, it is a collaboration of private sector, government, civil society. So what we aim to do at the Women Economic Assembly is to invite all South Africans to come and showcase success regarding women empowerment, also learn from each other of how best to address the issues of empowerment, and for players, meaning the private sector and the public sector, to showcase to women the opportunities that are available so that women can understand how to access those opportunities. Because one of these challenges around the economic empowerment is that you found, for an example, private sector would say, I would like to give opportunities to women, but where are the women? And then the women would be like, I've been trying to access opportunities, but how do I do it? So this platform presents on an annual basis an opportunity for that kind of engagement. And importantly, we should not ignore learning from each other, because some companies or industries have done this very well and others are not able to. So that platform then presents an opportunity to also learn from each other. And then we cannot forget women learning from other women, because that also is important. So you have these, for once a year, these industry players representing different sectors, exchanging knowledge, networking, mentoring each other, learning from each other. So that is the importance of the Economic Assembly. But key to it is that, as you know, in South Africa, we really have a lot of plan. We have policies that seeks to address empowerment. What we haven't done very well, which the Assembly aims to do, is to have a proper monitoring tool which is understood by everyone across the country. So that tool will not only measure the hard economic statistics of how many women or what contribution to GDP, if I may use that, it will also tell us what capacity building has been introduced by companies, what mentoring is there, do you have any incubators, and which companies have done that very well? Because for us, we see this whole process as not a once-off, but an annual event. And also we see this empowerment of women, and we understand it that it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. So there will be different solutions for different levels of women. You might be wanting to find out about the rural community, and in that regard, I would say, hence, we will also have a tool that will be measuring differently from address specifically for the rural community, addressing the levels of poverty and measuring migrations of families out of poverty. So in the beginning of 2020, Cabinet adopted the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Following that, the President formally launched the National Strategic Plan. And then subsequent to that, President came out announcing that government will have a 40% procurement targeted to women-owned businesses. So Pillar 5 of the National Strategic Plan seeks to address the economic empowerment of women. So within that Pillar 5, we realize that this commitment by government presents to us an opportunity to address women economic empowerment in a targeted way, deliberate, and also in a sustainable manner by using the supply value chain. The commitment by government to procure from women-owned businesses provides us an opportunity to address the economic empowerment of women in a targeted, deliberate, and a sustainable manner via using the supply chain of companies. And we also believed that it is an opportunity to bring in private sector to address the supply value chain in the private sector as well. Something that the private sector was already doing, but in this case, we wanted it to be very targeted to women and also just understand how that plan will be done. So if you are thinking about then how different will this be compared to what has happened before, it's very clear. We are considering the first year of the Women Economic Assembly as a baseline. And this year we will be collecting data so that we can understand where this participation is or whether it is not there. Following that, then the players, meaning the public sector and the private sector, in each sector will then indicate what is their plan of addressing the empowerment through the value chain. So for us, that becomes very important because we see this as or if I can use the consulting jargon, low-hanging fruit, because then it provides different entries of women. We understand and we know that in some industries you will find that there are no women participants. And the question that we will then be asking is that how are we preparing women so that in future they can be in that industry? So what that talks to is us looking at going way back to the girl child at school, to the university student, to the woman in the working place, to see how are they being prepared or how are they being capacitated in the industries so that they are able to go out there and run the companies. So we don't see this as a once-off and a quick fix. We see this as a movement that's going to be addressing this on an annual basis, and therefore the importance of the Women Economic Assembly.
Beijing set us on a path globally and in various countries to achieve gender equality, and over the 26 years quite a lot has been done. We in our country have also seen policies that have enabled women, for instance, to qualify in university, to go into universities, and for us to have even more women than men qualifying in some of the areas of expertise. And as a country, we can almost say women are not ready to participate fully in the economy. Like the rest of the world, we still are far from closing that gender gap that has been set in Beijing. And it is within this context that the UN has even come up with generation equality, realizing that if we are moving at this pace, it will take us even over 100 years for the world to close the gender gap. And that to do that, it is important that in addition to the great policies that have been initiated, the various initiatives that have been and programs that have been introduced globally, that a key unlocking factor should be collaboration, that we need to get public, private sector, and civil society work more closely to optimize, to accelerate this drive, that it can no more be business as usual. 26 years has been a long time coming. A lot has been achieved, but we've been moving too slowly. And it is because we have the policies, we can do much more. And this Women Economic Assembly speaks to that coalition of action, of bringing together public and private sector and civil society to hold hands and to optimize our achievement of that goal. In particular, it speaks to the location of women as drivers of economies in the hands of everyone. That private sector, public sector, and communities all need to be active participants. When you have private sector looking at the role of women as a business case, then you have drivers not only being governments with policies, but you have that shared commitment to activating and promoting the role of women in the economy. We have been privileged that in this process, we've been able to get the support from various sectors in our economy, where key business leaders are appreciating the fact that it is in the interest of our economy and success of business to optimize the participation of women-owned enterprises in their businesses. And they are ready in following up on UN principles, global principles to support women-owned enterprises and to enable them to be competitive. They are ready to invest in procurement to extend participation of enterprises. As Women Economic Assembly, we are looking forward to the various sectors showing the way and working with us and speaking to the dynamic strengths, providing that inclusive participation of the women to grow competitive enterprises and also to ensure that our women make a greater impact in the various sectors.
The year 2021 has been identified as the year of Charlotte Maxeke, and you've seen that we've been celebrating this amazing woman the whole of this year. One of the things that she has taught us is that as we rise, in fact, there's a quote that I love about her where she says that this work that we do is not about self. It is about people, it is about our nation. And I have been really inspired by this woman because the way, in fact, that we have been working as the Women Economic Assembly Collaborative has been a combination of women who are completely selfless and who have given up on their personal agendas to ensure that this legacy work we're doing of transforming this economy actually takes place. Another thing that Charlotte Maxeke teaches us is that when you rise, you've got to bring someone else with you. So as we begin to do this as the Women's Economic Assembly Collaborative, whether we're in the private sector, in the public sector, and civil society, what we're hoping is the spirit that this nation is going to learn is that everybody will take up the baton and actually begin to do the work to transform our economy.
So there is a clear relationship between gender-based violence and where women find themselves economically, and it's just about means, because in our country men have been the providers, and if you find yourself as a woman not being the provider, you are more likely to be subjected to a gender-based violence relationship because you have no options. So if I can just tell you about myself, my father used to say to us when we grew up that it is important for you as girls to get your education because you need to be financially independent. I must say we didn't understand that at the time, but it is really at the core of whether you are able to sustain yourself. So Pillar 5 has also recognized that the fact that you are more likely to sit in this abusive relationship because you are considering what's going to happen to my children if I leave this marriage, and then lo and behold you find yourself killed. So I would clearly say that when women are empowered to make own decisions about themselves, about their health, about their finances, about how many children they even want to have, and about everything regarding themselves, and that then they will not be subjected to that level of abuse.
What are the goals? Women Economic Assembly is activating collaboration to optimize the inclusion of women-owned enterprises in our economy, and also the inclusion of our women more solidly in all sectors of our economy. Therefore, it has short-term and long-term goals. Short-term, it's about partnering so that leaders in various sectors, in various areas, identify areas where there are opportunities for including women, where they can capacitate women to participate, But in particular, we are looking at models that are going to emerge that are showing impact of women being effectively integrated in procurement, where women-owned enterprises are not only integrated into procurement processes, but are also growing and playing an important role. Secondly, we'll be looking at what is it that leading companies or public sector is doing to achieve that growth, so that we can share the learnings and extend the learnings across the ecosystem. We are also looking at the various pillars of our economy, because South Africa is an advanced economy, that the different pillars of our economy can also collaborate and create that enabling ecosystem where the funding system can be brought in at the right time to enable access, to enable growth and the desired levels of impact. On an annual basis, we are looking at celebrating the greatest achievements made, whether by corporates, by individual, women-owned enterprises, as well as particular departments that have been innovative with regard to this inclusive approach that is required, because we are on a journey that we are looking at to support us in closing this gender gap in 10 years. And we are relying on all our social partners to enable us to achieve that.
So our constitution says that South Africa belongs to all who lives in it. So my biggest dream is to leave this world knowing that my grandson and my granddaughter will have an equal opportunity in this country. It is the ultimate goal of this. However, as we start to implement, we are realistic in that we will have areas of redress, but ultimately it is a country of equal opportunity for all who live in it.
One of the principal objectives of the Women's Economic Assembly is to create an ongoing platform for collaboration across sectors of our economy. We've got amazing leaders within business working here. We've got amazing leaders from the public sector and from civil society. When you think about work that's being done right now around economies of the future, collaboration and co-creation is one of the most important principles, because it establishes the need for a people of a nation to come together and say, here are the solutions, and to begin to negotiate and engage with each other about what works, what doesn't work, to reflect, to teach each other, to learn from each other. So one of the dreams of this platform, as we keep going year after year, is that stakeholders will continue to be willing to participate and engage, and particularly establish a new social compact with the women of this country to say that it is not good enough that we have a nation that excludes women. It's not good enough that we have a nation that undermines the skills, the knowledge and the wisdom of young women in this country. And that from this moment onwards, we will begin to engage about how we change every single system, every structure and every part of business so that women are participating. Particularly, I keep thinking about the young women who are busy finishing school and can't find employment. And one of the things that's becoming clear is that actually these women are going to have to be the ones that are employment creators. So how do they begin engagement with the system and begin to say, we need opportunities here and there? A platform for negotiation, for engagement is what is that's what it's supposed to do. So the Women's Economic Assembly really is an opportunity for every single one to come together and say, time for transformation is now, and we are committed, and we are willing, and we're going to put in the hard work to act on the commitments we've made.